Elation and jubilation, gamers from all around the world. I am Lucian and this is the World Gamer Show. And today we're going to talk about MediEvil for the PS1.
What?
Now, you might be wondering why am I holding in my hand the PlayStation 4 remake instead of the PlayStation 1 version. That is because I left my original copy in my parents' house, but conveniently enough, this excellent remake does come with the emulated version of the original MediEvil for PlayStation 1 included as an unlockable bonus. The question is it really worth it to play the original MediEvil after not one but two remakes came after it? Well, let's find out. MediEvil was developed by Sony Cambridge Studio and released in 1998. It's an action game with platforming elements, but its main focus is on combat and collecting stuff to use somewhere else. Nothing too complicated, at least in the early stages. After its release, MediEvil has seen its first remake coming out on the PSP in 2005, called MediEvil Resurrection. It's a decent attempt in my opinion, even though the critics at the time complained that too many things were changed, and I can somewhat agree. This was fixed with the excellent PlayStation 4 remake, released in 2019, but then again, professional reviewers complained that instead it was too similar to the original. But that goes a long way to expose how seriously are to be taken professional reviewers. Anyway, this more recent remake also includes the original MediEvil, making it a fantastic example of gameception, when a full game is included for free within another full game. I made a video about this whole concept. You can find the link passing on your screen right now or in the description. Anyway, to unlock the original MediEvil, you need to collect all the lost souls and complete their objectives. After that, you can access the original game from the main menu, which will even boot the nostalgic PlayStation 1 intro. One of MediEvil's most peculiar aspects is definitely its art style, heavily influenced by the likes of The Nightmare Before Christmas, Edward Scissorhands, Casper, and other Gothic-influenced classics. Just like them, MediEvil leans towards the horror theme to present a goofy style that leaves a smile on your face. This doesn't mean that all the creatures look goofy. Many of the bosses, for example, are actually quite threatening. The game sees Sir Daniel Fortescue being resurrected by the evil sorcerer Zarok and being summoned by accident along with other monsters in order to conquer the kingdom of Gallowmere. Dan is a nice skeleton warrior who has just one eye left, but can trust his life on numerous tools of destruction to aid him in his adventure. Adventure that will bring him far and wide across the land of Gallowmere, from the most classic cemeteries through scarecrow fields to a flying ghost ship. Dan will have to fight his way through more than 20 levels, using swords, crossbows, magic, and even his own arm if necessary. Levels can be pretty big and usually require Dan to explore them thoroughly in order to find all the keys, or runes in this case, and move forward in the game. However, there are also many optional paths and areas to visit hidden in each level, which can reward Dan with money to spend on the gargoyle stores to buy ammo or some equipment, but most importantly, Dan can find the chalice. In order to make it materialize, Dan first needs to eliminate a certain amount of enemies, which can further increase the necessity to explore. After that, Dan can collect the chalice and visit the Hall of Heroes. Each time Dan brings the chalice there, he will be awarded with a new weapon, or a health bottle, which further allows him to increase his maximum health, or even money. There is a chalice almost in every level, and if you gather them all, you can access the best standing. The review will resume after a short commercial break. Sadly, there are many things that give away the fact that this is a 1998 game.
You're too late, Fortescue.
First, you better get used to jump with the circle button, and not your usual X button, like in all modern titles. I guess at the time they thought that you wouldn't jump as much as actually swinging your sword, which is done with the X button, but still, this feels unnatural by today's standards. And while you can still change the button's configuration, none of them allows you to actually set the jump button on X and have a more modern button setting. The combat itself is a little stiff. You basically swing your sword and hope to hit anybody in the process, which doesn't always happen when it should. This is why I personally felt much safer with long-range weapons like the bows, which basically auto-aim. Considering that combat is basically 80% of the game, this is kind of a problem. On the other hand, our protagonist can sometimes feel overly responsive when trying to platforming your way through the levels. And this becomes an issue especially in the later levels, where there are a lot of bottomless pits. Though there are ways to actually make him walk slower, which is something that I wouldn't find out until like years later. You can of course gently press the analog stick to make him just walk, but also use the D-pad to achieve the same result. Finally, if you press L3, you can switch between walk and run while using the analog stick. Still, there are some jumps that require a dash, and in that case, just walking will not help you. On top of that, if you accidentally double tap the D-pad, maybe because you are too close to an edge of a platform and want to move even slower than usual, it will actually begin to run even with the D-pad, instead of just moving very slowly, so you better be careful. Just to give you an actual example of how the controls feel, just look at here. Look at me failing time after time, miserably, lonely, wasting all my life, bottles, one after the other. I know there are plenty of full life bottles where I'm heading, but it's no use if I'm stuck here. Okay, it's the last one. It is now or never. I need to dash and jump, it's okay, you can make it.
I believe I can fly. I believe I can.
Yes! Finally! Now I've just a small bit of life left, but if I can make it to where there are other life bottles, I can finally say I'm safe. Oof. And if that wasn't enough, sometimes the camera just decides to go crazy. Like in this case here, I'm trying to jump off this ledge and... oh, would you look at that? What happened is that normally you can't control the camera, just forget to do that with the right analog stick, that's too modern. These are the old times of just rotating it left and right with the trigger buttons. In this case, L2 and R2. But sometimes the camera becomes fixed, meaning you can't adjust it. And sometimes it becomes fixed at the worst possible times and at the worst possible angles. And without warning. So in this case, what happened is that I accidentally dared to step into an area which had the fixed camera. So the camera automatically tried to change without my input. All while I was in the air. Nice, huh? Anyway, to be honest, these are just rare cases. You probably can and will get used to it. It is nothing that can really impede your progress, aside from very few occasions where it makes things really hard, like the ones that I just showed you. In a way, I think that developers knew that they were exaggerating a little, because after some sections they put lots of life bottles, which I take as an apology for what they just put you through. Still, aside from that, the levels themselves are well crafted in their design, and the atmosphere is so captivating that they really push you to move forward and see what else the game has in store for you, in spite of some gameplay limitations which can indeed cause some frustration. The frustration can be mitigated by the awesome soundtrack, which wouldn't be out of place in a Tim Burton's movie. One catchy and yet moody tune after the other, you're carried by a soundtrack that perfectly complements the atmosphere of the game, to which it is actually an integral part. If you love it as much as I do, you'll be happy to know that in the PS4 remake, the same soundtrack is completely re-recorded with live orchestra. I'm pretty sure you'll be humming these themes even outside of the game. The sound effects do their job well, but the voice acting, on the other hand, is so bad it's so good. In fact, it's hilarious.
Ah, fresh air. We hate these dark old caves and their filthy stench of old witches.
Not to mention the protagonist's famous muffling that so much contributed to his characterization and charm. But the question still stands. Should you even bother to play the original version of MediEvil with the two remakes already released? I would say yes. And no.
I am the master of riddles.
What I mean is that this original version has certainly its own charm. However, before going out of your way to play it, I will say try the PlayStation 4 remake. If you like it, then you're in luck, because this exact version is already included on the Blu-ray, so you don't need to buy the PS1 version anyway. So yeah, my advice is just buy the PS4 remake, which is arguably the best of the two remakes. Of course, if you already played the original back in the day and feel nostalgic, yeah, still buy the PS4 remake. That's the bottom line. But now I want to know what you think of it. Did you play the original MediEvil or one of its numerous remakes? Which one do you prefer? The original, the PSP remake MediEvil Resurrection, or the PlayStation 4 remake? Share your thoughts or memories of the game in the comment section down below. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing and also liking and sharing the video. This really does help a lot, so thank you in advance. And thank you also for watching this video to the end. I will see you in my next one, but until then, stay safe, play safe, world gamers.